that in the comments. And yeah, feel free to start asking questions if you have any. I can also cover a few things that I've been coming across. It's always, at the end of the day, profile building is about outreach. A lot of people seem to still think that profile building is still just about applying for opportunities and waiting to hear back, when most opportunities are not publicly advertised. As in, maybe they are, but you just aren't going to be able to find them in time without getting in touch with the people who are involved in the opportunity or helping to organize the opportunity. A lot of opportunities come from conversations you have with people you reach out to on LinkedIn, people you meet at local chapter events of organizations of which you are a part. There's simply a lot of opportunities out there, and it's difficult to just find them by searching for them on, say, like online. Or yeah, that's just not what you want to be relying on. You want to instead be relying on, and this is based on what I've seen from profile builders who have made the most progress in the shortest amount of time, you want to be relying on 2 to 3, maybe even 5 people who are already highly involved in your field and are always coming across profile building opportunities. Now, the question is, how do you meet these people and how do you get acquainted with these people and then eventually start getting involved in the activities they are involved in? It's going to come down to having lots of conversations with lots of different professionals in your field. And you can start these conversations online. You can start these conversations at in-person events. And it's having enough of these conversations to a point where you then get to meet 3 to 5 or even 10 people who are just constantly involved in your field. You won't know who these people are, and you won't know who out of these people would be open to keeping in touch with you, would be open to referring opportunities to you, unless you do enough of that volume and get to a point where you have, say, 100, 200, even 300 conversations in a matter of weeks or months. It's what I've seen the most effective profile builders do, instead of just applying for things, or a lot of you are doing this, it seems, spending months on applying for like a fellowship or applying for a very specific opportunity and putting everything into whether you get that fellowship or not. What you should be doing instead is starting conversations and finding as many opportunities to find these professionals who will then eventually refer more high quality profile building opportunities your way. Because having those 3 to 5 people connected to you is just going to lead to more opportunities. Let's say, like, out of these 3 to 5 people, every one of them refers one opportunity to you a month. That's 3 to 5 a month, which is probably more than you can handle, but you want to be in that position. What you don't want to be doing is spending months on 2 to 3 highly prestigious profile building opportunities, like putting together applications. And this can actually be said for journal articles as well. A lot of you are very hung up when applying or on submitting journal articles, thinking that that is going to automatically boost your profile. If you are a researcher, that is probably going to be the case. But if you are not a researcher and you are presenting an industry focused profile, writing journal articles is not the most effective way to build a strong profile, nor is it even the most effective way to build towards the authorship criterion. You don't need journal articles for the authorship criterion. You can publish in technical magazines. You can publish articles in professional publications or trade publications. Journal articles can take 6 months, maybe to even a year to put together to get published. So that's just something else to keep in mind. But those are just a couple of things that have come to mind recently based on the conversations I've been having with people who are profile building. But if any of you have questions, feel free to start asking them in the comments. Anyone have questions? Anyone have questions. So I don't see any questions so far. Something I can also briefly go through, and that I pretty much go through every single live stream, is my newsletter resources. So here is what I currently have for my newsletter. So as part of my paid newsletter, which is $12 per month, you will get access to a profile building opportunities database. This is where I listed over 400 opportunities for different fields, categorized by criteria. And these are just starting points to give you an idea of how you can get started with profile building and how you can start meeting some of these top professionals in your field. So these opportunities are relevant for EB-1A. They can be relevant for EB-2A depending on your proposed endeavor, and they can be relevant for O1 as well. So these are just some profile building opportunities that I've been sharing. Something else to get access to as part of my profile building newsletter resource. Something else to get access to as part of my newsletter resources or my AO decision reviews. These are reviews of appeals decisions issued by the AO, and they go into USCIS's reasoning behind initially denying an EB-1A, denying an EB-2A, or denying an O1, and they give you an idea of how USCIS thinks about EB-1A, about NIW, about O1. So from these decisions, I draw profile building insights that you can then use and refer to as part of your profile building. And I just generally suggest you try to review some of these decisions to get a glimpse into how USCIS thinks about EB-1A, about NIW, and about O1. You also get access to some of these video resources that I'm putting together. These are recorded conversations with EB-1A recipients, where I ask some of the questions that a lot of you are asking me all the time, which are how to come up with reference letters for a critical role, how to put together a strong critical role claim, how to put together a strong original contributions claim. So these are just some of the video resources that I've been sharing, and some of the office hours recordings are in there as well. And as part of my newsletter, you also get access to my private group. So this is a group where members have been able to find judging opportunities, have been able to find collaborators. A lot of the group members, based on what I've seen, are also committee chairs, are also involved in very top organizations in their field, and they're constantly sharing opportunities that they are coming across to involve other group members. So that's something you can get access to as well as part of the private group. You get access to some of these top professionals who are more than open to collaborating with you just based on the activities they're involved in. So that is something else you get access to as part of my newsletter resources, which are part of my paid newsletter, which is $12 per month. And then occasionally I also answer questions and review progress updates within the newsletter group chat. So that is just a bit about my paid newsletter, which is $12 per month. Let's answer some of these questions. Hi, Dinesh. Like to know which membership that one should focus other than IEEE. These days, USCIS are not considering some memberships. Could you please shed some light on it, please? Now, membership is generally a difficult criterion to meet. You can still work towards it as a way to land authorship and judging opportunities, which is what a lot of you are doing within the newsletter. For membership, you need to find memberships that show that a requirement of membership is that you have outstanding achievements in the field, as judged by other top professionals. You can meet this bar potentially by joining, say, conference committees or advisory boards, or it could be editorial boards of journals. There are many ways to try to meet the membership criterion outside of just IEEE. IEEE doesn't really meet the membership criterion. Maybe if you become like an IEEE committee member, you can show that you had to go through a rigorous selection process where you had to show that you had outstanding achievements in your field. Perhaps then you could use that IEEE committee membership as evidence for the membership criterion. But generally speaking, IEEE membership, even senior membership, are not really going to help you meet the membership criterion. You will probably want to focus on other memberships, such as advisory board positions. For software engineering, what I've seen so far, that I think could count as strong memberships are dev network advisory board positions, lead devs advisory board positions, and at least for dev network, I know that they pick their hackathon judges from their advisory board members. They also pick judges to judge their awards from these advisory boards. So that's just an example of how judging opportunities can come from getting involved in professional organizations that have memberships that could count towards the membership criteria. So there is no. I would try to avoid lists that people. I would try to avoid like memberships that you're just hearing more and more often. That you have heard many times over. There are certain awards that are talked about all the time, that are used as judging evidence all the time. And at some point, and I think this point has been reached already, those awards are going to get questioned. Same with memberships. The same organizations are coming up for memberships now. So those fellowships are probably going to get questioned eventually by certain officers. How to find mentors who wish to connect and help EB-1A aspirants who recently started to build their profile organically. I would say mentors, you can always try to talk to past EB-1A recipients. I also help with a bit of one-on-one profile building with people who do approach me. And outside of that, you can just work with other profile builders who are maybe more advanced than you, and then see if you can help them, and then see if they can help you in return. That's something you can do. That is actually what I have found to be quite effective within my private group. People are just constantly interacting with each other, and as a result, they're giving each other useful suggestions to advance each other's profile building. That is something else you can look into as well. Anyone else have questions? Is it necessary? Hi, Jason. Is it necessary to get patents to strengthen EB2 profile? If you are referring to EB-2NIW, the answer is no. It's not necessary. It could help depending on your proposed endeavor, especially if what you are doing requires patented technology that you have created. Then perhaps that could be relevant to your proposed endeavor, and perhaps that could be evidence that you are well positioned to carry out your proposed endeavor. But outside of that, it is not really, it's not necessary. It could help, but it depends on your proposed endeavor. Luther asks, hi Jason, does peer reviewing of journal require prior research experience? I did apply to many on PeerJ, but no luck, and other websites require you to be in academia even to be considered. Based on what I have seen, no, because I do know industry professionals who have been able to find peer review opportunities. How they went about finding these opportunities was, this is based on what they told me, they reached out to committee chairs of upcoming conferences and offered to volunteer and volunteered to review their submissions. And I think like out of like the hundreds of people they reached out to, like 10, maybe like 5-10 replied and said they would be open to having that person as a reviewer. That's something you can do as well. You can just reach out to committee chairs of upcoming conferences and to offer to peer review for them. And depending on the conference, I think there are a couple that are more industry focused that are coming up within IEEE. Those might be more inclined to having industry professionals peer review because they are focused on enterprise applications. Anyone else have questions? So something else that I've seen come up a lot is a lot of people want to know how to get started with profile building. I think there are a couple of things you want to be doing to kickstart your profile building. One of those things is going to be finding local chapter events to get involved with, and if there are no local chapter events in your area, the closest substitute probably are probably going to be meetups. That is definitely something you want to be looking into. Hi, Gaurav. If we are having industry experiences publishing, and IEEE ACM Springer helps, or we should target trade publications. Authorship is probably not going to be the needle mover for you if you're an industry professional, so both could work. Of course, getting published in a journal helps. Generally speaking, it's just much harder to get published in a journal. But if you are targeting publications within IEEE, ACM Springer, ACM and IEEE, I haven't checked Springer, but ACM and IEEE have technical magazines. Those may be more accessible to you if you're an industry professional. And you can also target a mix of trade publications as well by asking people in your field about what they read and then using that as a way to find trade publications to get published in. It's not really an or, it's more of an and. You can do both. And both could lead to a strong authorship claim. Anyone else have questions? Anyone else have questions? Something else that I don't really hear much about, or at least don't see much about, is collecting evidence and documenting things. You want to get into the habit of just documenting everything you're doing for profile building. Over document rather than under document, so that when you are required to present evidence for your claims, at least you will know that you have over documented rather than under documented. So that's just something you want to be doing. So take screenshots, take photos where possible, save down emails, that sort of thing. Grab asks, typically how much time it takes to get published in IEEE. It really depends on the publication. You might want to check on this on your own, but from what I've heard, technical magazines may have a shorter turnaround time than, say, getting a full 12-page manuscript reviewed by the editorial committee of a conference that's coming up. So it varies. Yeah, it really depends on where you are publishing within IEEE. Anyone else have questions? What is the best strategy to reach out for letters of recommendation from previous employer or industry experts? Previous employer, if you have good relations with them, then just reach out to the people who you used to work with there. Maybe they moved on to a different employer. They could still serve as references. For industry experts, it's just going to take a lot of volume, and it is also going to take a lot of showing how you can help them. Maybe there's some way you can help them in exchange. Maybe it's introducing them to a person that sort of thing. It's based on the expert as well. I mean, one approach you can use is just to reach out to a lot of industry experts and see who replies. Some people are just open to writing references for people who reach out, so you could come across a couple of these people. It's just going to take a lot of volume. Don't think it's going to take 10 experts. Probably 30 to 100 emails Any guidance on awards? Globee Stevie are overflooded, and I heard they are blacklisted by USCIS awards. I mean, for software engineering, I would say like dev networks, devies look pretty good. Those are awards that come up all the time. You can also look into judging best paper awards of upcoming conferences. Those tend to be good as well. It really depends on whether you're asking if you want to be showing strong judging evidence or awards evidence. If you're trying to go for awards, I would suggest maybe not going for awards if you haven't really gotten any awards in the past. If you're asking about judging, probably judging like devies. So those are Dev Network's awards. And Dev Network runs one of the largest developer conferences in the world. So probably stronger as judging evidence than, say, something like Globee's or Stevie's. There's also, best paper awards, that's judging as well. There are also specific awards you can look into for your field that you might be able to come across by joining professional organizations within your field. IEEE has a bunch of awards that you can look into. Does participating in hackathons count for judging for an industry experience? If you're judging hackathons that involve industry professionals, then yes. If they just involve students, probably not, because students do not count as other professionals in your field. So try to go for hackathons that involve industry professionals. Anyone else have questions? Also, for references, you might want to start with outreach to industry experts and the people you plan on getting reference from probably as early as possible, just to see if you can get like a soft confirmation that they're open to writing a reference for you. Getting as many of those people lined up as possible as early as possible is going to just save you a lot of time when you do need to file, because what I have seen happen is people get references and then they just drop out at the last minute. And then you're put in a situation where you don't have enough references, or like that key reference that was supposed to reinforce your critical role claim or reinforce your original contributions claim. They have now dropped out. So you are left with a huge chunk of your evidence, your set of evidence, just like essentially like a big chunk of your case is not there. So just make sure you try to contact as many potential references as early as possible, just so you can get those soft confirmations. That's just something I've seen. Anyone else have questions? What are the low-hanging fruits based on your experience so far for a newbie to start pursuing towards profile building? I think that a couple of things you can think about here. I think the question is whether you want to be, if you're asking like low-hanging fruits as in like what opportunities you're going to get just by like applying and then using those as like the basis of your EB-1A profile, I would reconsider that. I think there has been an uptick in these generic opportunities because everyone's trying to go for these like so-called low-hanging fruit opportunities that everyone can just like get and then use to check off like 2 to 3 criteria. You want to reconsider that completely. It's better to reach out to like 50 to 100 people, apply to like 20 to 30 opportunities and get like 2 to 3 really high quality ones and 1 to 2 really high quality people to reply to you. High quality people as in like people who, I'm not saying like they're low quality or high quality people, I'm saying people who are in the know for these opportunities. Getting one of those 2 people, getting one or two of those people to reply to you and get connected with you and get acquainted with you, and getting 1 or 2 high profile opportunities, that can do far more for your profile than getting a bunch of low quality, very accessible opportunities. But if you're asking in terms of like low hanging fruits, like what to get started with, probably going to local chapter events, going to your local IEEE chapter events, going to local meetups, and talking to people who are doing the kinds of things you want to be doing. So if you want to be peer reviewing, go to an IEEE local chapter event, talk to the leaders who are present there and ask, do you know any peer reviewers? Because I would love to learn about how to get started with peer review. That's all you really need to do. And then the more times you ask, and the more people you ask over time, the more likely you are to get introduced to people who are doing what you want to be doing, which is peer review in this case. Same goes for writing articles. And this also applies to my private group. You can ask people there if they are peer reviewing. And if they are, ask for a follow-up conversation. Ask if you can get in touch with them to learn about how they got to get involved, how they got involved. Same with authorship. You want to get started with writing articles, writing papers, reach out to people who are doing those things. You can find those people on LinkedIn. You can find those people at local chapter events. You can probably find those people at meetups as well. You can find those people through the university professors who taught you, who may know people who are currently, this is exactly what I'm doing as well. I'm trying to find PhD students who are also working on papers to connect them with private group members. You can do this as well. You can reach out to PhD students and ask, what kinds of research are you working on? What kinds of papers are you working on? Is there a way you can get involved? That's really the low-hanging fruit. It sounds like a lot because it is a lot. It takes a lot of volume and it takes a lot of just reaching out to people and not hearing back and reaching out to people and doing that over and over again, probably for weeks. But that is what it takes to get acquainted with the kinds of people, get acquainted with like the 3 to 5 people who are involved in high quality opportunities, who will refer you to high quality opportunities and will involve you in what they're working on. So that there are like 2 sides to that question. It really depends on what you mean by low hanging fruit. But that's what I've seen from my experience so far. Thanks, Jason, for all your help. To EB-1A aspirants, your references are really helpful and your prompt response is always appreciated. Thank you for the kind words, Gaurav. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And this goes for any of you here who are watching this as well. Feel free to reach out to me and I will try to reply to your questions. And if you don't hear back, you can just follow up. Anyone else have questions? Yeah, if I could summarize all of outreach, and I've seen people build strong profiles. Let's connect on LinkedIn to find common opportunity to write publications, research papers, judging others' work. Feel free, feel free to reach out to. Yeah, and this is, you can also interact with other people who are on the stream. Yeah, Aki, I've also seen you get involved in a lot of things, a lot of activities. I've been seeing a lot of things pop up where you have been involved. So yeah, pretty much do what Aki's doing. He's a pretty good example, I would say. Anyone else have questions? Yeah, EB-1A profile building, I wouldn't say is complicated. It's just difficult sometimes because it takes a lot of outreach and just a lot of volume. It just takes a lot of volume. But I have seen quite a few people put in a lot of volume initially in the first few weeks of profile building or even first few months, and then get to a point where they're just constantly now overloaded with opportunities because they have gotten a high level of recognition in their field. Like, for example, one person I spoke to a couple of months ago He had already been speaking at top conferences when I met him, and then now he's at a point where he has gotten 4 speaking opportunities so far this month alone and is chairing multiple conferences. It seems like he's gotten to a point where he's just getting far too many opportunities. But I know he got there not just by applying for things, but doing a lot of outreach, just talking to a lot of people, just constantly having conversations. And now he's gotten to a point where he's so overloaded with opportunities that I think he's like stopped outreach for a bit. But that is what outreach can do if you are able to show how your expertise can help others in your field. That is the key to outreach too. It's not about just randomly hitting up people and asking for opportunities. It's about showing how you can help them with what they are doing, or at least trying to understand what you can do to help them. That is much more effective outreach than just slamming people with asks, especially people you don't know. So that's just outreach and what it can do for your profile building. Anyone else have questions? All right, if there are no other questions, thanks everyone for joining today's live stream.